butchering those words.
Good evening and salutation to all those who are wondering what the hell's wrong with me. My name is Connell the Cigar DM. I'm being joined by MarHawkman, Shadow and Son, and the one and the only person I know who has a tavern in his basement, Jaide. And we are talking about werewolves. It doesn't always have to be about werewolves. It could be werewolves, buffaloes, tigers, bears, and so forth and so on. So we're talking about this is because if you haven't noticed, it is October. It is the beginning of the season of being spooked. Now, there's movies out there, there's TV shows, there's comic books that talk about werewolves, and we're going to might be talking about some of them. But we want to talk about werewolves in your RPG. It doesn't have to be Dungeons & Dragons. It could be Traveler, maybe. It could be a World of Darkness. I know World of Darkness hit the werewolf wears hard there for a couple of years. It could be whatever you want. Even in Magic the Gathering, there are cards out there that celebrate werewolves, and we're going to be talking about all that tonight. So, how's everybody doing? Shadow?
Awesome, of course.
MarHawkman.
I'm okay.
And Jaide, the man who's made hooch in his own basement for the first time, and hopefully it's good. I still need to make it over there.
I'm doing all right. I know that there is a comment about live reactions. I'm not sure if you know how to turn those off in YouTube. They are a pain in the butt to try to find. I had to go hunting for them last time.
I don't think I care enough. I mean, let's be honest. I just don't. People are going to react however they want, and that's the beautiful thing about
the live reactions is actually when you hit one of the emote icons or whatever, it flashes up a bunch of nonsense that we can't even see. It only happens in chat, and that's what I believe Elle was referring to. Like all of the reactions block the text of chat so that nobody can actually see what's being typed.
Well, then I might have to look into it.
Yeah, I'll help you I will try to help you find it after the show. But
lady, I think this is a great idea. I do appreciate the concept of this idea. Bruce and Janet covering the Care Bears movie. Which one? Because there are two. One, the first one, and one where they go camping.
Which one did you like better?
As a kid?
Yeah, let's go with that.
I haven't seen them since I was a kid. I don't know. Maybe the one where they're camping. Because the moment they brought the cousins in it, I thought the Care Bear cousins, all those random animals just need to be taken out and shot. Because it's Care Bears, not Care and Walmart. Everything for low prices.
I'm not going to comment on that because, I would get a lot of hate for that one.
But,
yep.
Hey, it is Scott.
The battle for Endor.
That's good.
All right.
Anyways, let's get this ball going. Let's get this baseball game going. Let's not be like the Cubs and actually get to the end of the night without feeling like a bunch of losers. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. It's football season, like the Bears. Anyways. Now, everybody out there knows the homework. So I got some random questions before we get into the main thicket of the questions. MarHawkman, do you appreciate the concept of wares in your RPG games?
I mean, as an idea for a plot device, it's great, honestly. I mean, it doesn't even need to be a fantasy-themed game because, like I mentioned a little before the show, you can actually do that in Star Trek too. It's been done. So there's a variety of options of how to approach it depending on the setting. So even if it's not like classic werewolves, it's something akin to lycanthropy anyways.
Okay. What about you, Shadow? Do you allow werewolves in your camp? Wear anything in your camp and your worlds?
I have. Now, I wouldn't allow a player character to ever be a were creature. Once you become a monster, you hand me the character sheet and we'll roll up a new one.
We'll get into that one. That was a
Um,
question I was thinking about
but
for a little bit later on.
but to be honest, I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've seen it all. I've watched every werewolf movie. All I'm kind of burnt out and tired of it. I'm hoping you guys could give me reasons to bring it in, other than like a 1 or 2 time encounter. Yeah. The players run into some werewolves, they kill them, and on to the next encounter. Kind of, I'm glossing over it a lot, but for the most part, it kind of just bores the hell out of me. I'd rather pull out something that the players can't instantly identify and thus, think they know how to solve the problem. Because sure, you can change their vulnerabilities, but for the most part, that's all you can really do. Otherwise, they are, they're going to turn into a were critter at some point, and when they do, they're going to be a little bit tougher, if not a lot tougher, and the end, because they're going to be defeated. Because that's the way 99% of all games turn out. You might get a couple of casualties here and there, a couple of dead player characters, but for the most part, it's just going to be one stop along the way.
Yes.
Yes, there's.
I mean, it's just really up to the imagination what you want to slap where to, and so, Jaide, I know the answer. Boy, do I know the answer. Do you allow or appreciate were-like creatures in your campaigns?
Yes, I do. I have all sorts of lycanthropy communities, basically in different regions of the world, especially my own homebrew world. One of my absolute favorite characters was a lycanthrope, specifically a were-tiger. He didn't know he didn't know of his birth origins because he was orphaned as an infant and grew up in a very militaristic society. So his powers never manifested until he came of the right age to manifest it, while in the middle of a fight, losing his temper. He kind of raged into it. So he switched from being, this was 3-5 days, so he switched from being a monk to a barbarian in that same time frame. And that's when his bestial powers awakened within him. But yes, I absolutely love the things I can do with the different lycanthrope communities within my game world. And I don't necessarily have them typed as written in the book according to alignments. Werewolves don't have to be evil, or rather, they don't have to be chaotic evil. But they are pack animals. They hunt in packs. They move about, with the pack. They're very rare do you get a lone wolf.
The Omega Wolf.
Oh, yeah, they exist, but
they have a miserable existence. Anyway.
Yeah, they do.
All right. And for myself, yeah, I allow werewolves. I allow them all my campaign. I do stick to some of the old rules where with 3.5, I've railed against it. Jay can verify this. I railed against it hard. It wasn't until Eberron that I got my first taste of playing something that was close to the real McCoy, but wasn't exactly the real McCoy. I don't think alignment. I think alignment should matter, but I don't think it's the in all. I think there's definitely ways around it where a person could still be a werewolf who is a good character. He might not be able to be lawful good, but I'll give him chaotic good or neutral good. It just really depends on settings. Curse versus natural. If he was born into it.
To answer your question, L. Yes, I have Werewolf the Forsaken and Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Okay.
I expected as much.
So I got a couple ones, actually. I got a couple of them starred already. So we're going to do that really quick. I want to keep this show going in a good direction, but I also want to keep the chat happy. Because, well, that's how this should be done, right? All right. Scott says, there are several kinds of rare creatures, aren't there? Yes, you can quite literally put where and attach it to any animal out there. And as
Mammal.
long as you can work out what the stats should be if you're running a stat-based game, you can work it out. Where buffalo, where dog, whatever.
Typically, it's limited to mammals, though.
Yeah. No, I should know where shark. Well, they are a mammal.
Like I said,
Yeah.
typically,
Yeah.
typically it's limited to mammals.
Usually, but not always.
Shadow, you are muted, sir.
Yeah, Crafting was asking about where insects.
That was my next one.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be a were cockroach, more power to you, I guess. Do you have a? I mean, what kind of?
I mean,
Beetleborgs?
One could argue
Werewolves?
that the character of Spider-Man has experimented with the concept of lycanthropy over the years.
He has turned into a spider.
I
The
don't think
mutation.
that's a rare creature in the traditional sense. You could go that
Right.
route and use that as your justification. But I think the genetic experiment kind of thing just plays more into what's at least been traditional.
Well, I'm specifically talking about the man spider phase, where
Yeah, I know.
he just chooses this huge brutish monster.
Yeah, it's still an experiment gone wrong, as opposed to because of the phase of the moon or some sort of mystical connection to a curse or a thing or even a disease
Or a god.
Right. It's quite literally always been, something that happens not by any sort of interference by man, other than maybe by the curse or some evil pact with a demon or something like that, or a god, as opposed to created in a lab.
Well, that was kind of what I was getting at earlier with the whole Star Trek thing. It's depending on the setting, lycanthropy may or may not be magic, because your setting might not even have magic in it. It might be something else.
It's true.
I've seen alien movies where if the alien was the District Number 9 or something, the alien blood got into the human, and the human was slowly turning into the alien. I think that's the right movie. I might be wrong, but yeah, you could do something. I could see something of that nature working. God, yeah, I think it was. It doesn't really matter. Werebears, were they lawful good? I think that they were.
Yes, they are. They were, for many werewolves in 3.5, were the only playable lycanthrope that any game master that I know of would allow, because it was lawful good. It wasn't any of the other evil varieties. People wanted to play werewolves or were-tigers or whatever, and the game masters would typically always say no, because they have listing in the book, and game masters, you don't always have to follow what's in the book. If it's your game, if it's your house rules, your homebrew, whatever, you don't have to follow what's in the book. Don't treat it like gospel. Treat it as guidelines. But Werebear was the only one game masters would allow, because it was the only one that said lawful good or good of any kind. And I didn't care for that.
Yeah, I don't like being tied down by alignments if there is not so much wiggle room, but if you can, because there's these wonderful things that Clark can do called attunement, which could turn your alignment back to what it really was.
Atonement, yes. Atonement.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways around it in the mechanics of the game. It's just the DM had to be willing to put a little extra work into it, so did the player. Yeah. Do what you want. Your grandma's right. Do what you want. It's your table. All right. So I got a question for you guys. For those who do homebrew, I'll word this a little bit different for you, there, MarHawkman. For those who do homebrew worlds, make your own. Do you have a particular origin for the wares, or do you just stick to what's been the tried and true version of them? I'll start with you, Shadow.
To be honest, nobody ever cares. They just kill them and move on. They really don't. I don't allow them to be player characters, even werebears, because in my opinion, if you become a were creature, you no longer care about adventuring, and you certainly don't care about leveling up. So you want to hand me your character sheet, make a new one, or try to get cured. It's that simple. I don't see the allure of being an animal as opposed to the divine creature that humans are, with all of goes with that.
Sorry. Sorry, I thought I smelled hypocrisy.
If you didn't, you can't prove it wrong.
Yeah, there's the hypocrisy again. Man, it's thick. Anyway, Jade.
Yeah, so the origins. So I do have some, because my world is old, and I'm talking thousands of years old in its own timeline. There are origins of the lycanthropes in the game world, and players can actually go discover those origins if they want, if they're willing to travel those paths long enough. But generally speaking, if I'm using lycanthropes as enemies or foes, there's a reason they are there. They don't just simply show up out of the blue for no apparent reason. They're not a thematic placement just because it's Halloween month or anything like that. No, when I place lycanthropes, they are there for an intended reason. And each clan or each branch of lycanthrope groups or packs have specific goals that they are trying to attend all on their own. And they know they're never going to get help from the mortals, so they don't typically bother. And this is where I kind of stray into the Werewolf the Apocalypse game engine, because the werewolves in Werewolf the Apocalypse, they are trying to stop the apocalypse one day at a time. They know it's a losing battle. They know they are never going to win. But they are the heroes trying to push back apocalypse by one day at a time. And whatever ground they make and whatever bodies they leave, behind them, as long as, life in the world keeps spinning just one more day, they've done their job.
Yeah,
Right.
that comment Elle made about lycanthropy as an STD, that's exactly how it works in the Underworld movies.
I mean, he wasn't. I mean, it's
what
like
games?
vampirism. It is an STD of sorts.
It's a blood pathogen.
Once again, I said in sorts.
In many in a lot of different medias, lycanthropy is a blood pathogen. Not necessarily an STD, but it resides within someone's blood. There are other ways that lycanthropy can spread. I typically don't run the curse of lycanthropy, where if you're bitten or scratched, you become a werewolf, because that's
there's one better than that.
That's just dumb. Because if a werewolf was going to bite somebody or scratch someone, why wouldn't they just kill them and get it over with? Just
better than that.
I think American
rip
Werewolf,
their arms off and be done with it.
I think it's supposed to be that you survived by the skin of your teeth, but there was a price, as opposed to they just come up and give you a little nibble and run off. That's retarded. But if you make it so that, maybe even the player,
Actually, you know what? The Underworld prequel movie, they actually went with the idea that people who got mauled to death by a werewolf would actually just regenerate into a werewolf instead of properly dying.
Yes, Elle, I kind of want to yell about the movie. I won't do it, but I have done it a lot. I have yelled about the werewolves in Twilight because we're not werewolves. That I'm not bashing the Native Americans' belief on the werewolf, their variation of werewolves, but that wasn't not my werewolf.
That's not the Indo-European werewolf. No.
Yeah, it was even. Yeah. Anyways, all right.
What were you doing watching those movies in the first place?
I was in my younger 20s, and going to chick flicks with chicks normally ended with me getting what I want at the end of the day.
I'm calling bullshit.
Well, I met Jade. You met my ex-wife.
Yeah,
So,
that's all I'm gonna say. Yes, I have met.
and I
that
have a
individual.
daughter. So let's put
Yes,
master
yes, you
together
do.
here.
Anyway, so back to game topics.
What was I going to say? What was I thinking? Now, I had a point. There was a point I wanted to argue. No, there's two things I wanted to say. One thing was there was a weirder one I've heard about that was more than just getting bite or scratched. Was if you see a wolf print that has water in it, and you drink the water out of the wolf footprint in the mud, you could turn into a werewolf. It's like old Eastern European variation of it. There's like not 1,000, but there was. It's a weird one.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. To me, it sounded like those people who did that wanted that curse, as opposed to, oh, I'm dying of thirst, and there just so happens to be a wolf print with water, and I'm going to break out a straw and slurp that up.
It's like I said, it was a weird one. It was.
I've heard it too.
And the other thing was, let's get back to the questions because I sure as shit can't remember what the other one was. For your okay, for those, I'm going to word this differently for you, Shadow, because you've already answered it in a roundabout way. For those who do have the aware ability, if you're allowing them to be players, this is why I have to word it differently for this guy. What abilities do you let them keep?
You asking me?
I'm asking Jaide.
Oh, right. Okay. So when it comes to lycanthropy, as for my players, if one of my players becomes a lycanthrope, typically I kind of follow some of the werewolf, the apocalypse, or even some of the like exalted style lunars, where they are of a particular caste of moon. So they may not transform at full moon, but it's a tiered progression system. So at first, they're unable to control the transformation, and they gain immense strength, but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to hold back either, so they can't do non-lethal damage. Young lycanthropes or lycanthropes that are newly transformed, they are not aware of what is happening to them. So they can't pull their punches. They can't control the transformation. They can't control necessarily the bloodlust. The character becomes mostly an NPC at the very beginning. And it happens when they're asleep. So the character doesn't actually even know what's going on. They black out, and suddenly, they're 12 miles away from where they started, and there's a huge trail of blood, debris, and all sorts of wreckage between them and where they started. And that's how they wake up. They're like, wait, how did I get here? It's like, well, you don't know how you got here. So why don't you, you've got a path of destruction leading to this point, and you wake up in this field covered in blood and feathers and other animal carcasses around you. What are you going to do now?
I kind of on the same train thought with that one. I kind of do, especially if they're new werewolves. I don't know if a lot of the people in chat have seen it, but it was one of the Avenger movies. I think it was Age of Ultron. No, it was the first, not that one. It was a Hulk movie where he was trying to describe what it was, what he remembers for being a Hulk, and all it was flashes. He doesn't have the full picture. So when I say somebody is transformed, you've transformed into, and it's the next day, they're like, what did I do? And I'm going to give me an intelligence check because they get spots. They don't get the full idea, at least not up front.
Glimpses
of what happened. I completely agree with that. MarHawkman, and because do you mainly just play Star Trek games?
I've done a variety of things. It's like Star Trek Adventures I use as an example because that's one where my character was actually like partially undergoing a transformation, and that was particular example was one where environmental hazard and a curse you want to avoid. Not something where, you know, you're like, oh, I'm a werewolf now. That's cool, I guess. No, not that kind of thing. Because like the Barclay's protomorphosis thing kind of sort of makes you go insane.
The Barclay. Okay, that's a question for later on. I think I know who you're talking about.
There was an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where
Yeah,
everyone on the ship got turned into weird monster creatures because of people doing genetic science. That was the sort of thing you normally see mad scientists do in horror movies, and it was the medical officer on board this ship, and it went horribly wrong.
Barclay was the character that just kept on giving in some of those episodes.
Well, Barclay was the patient. Barclay wasn't the
No.
person who created this thing either. Is that anyway?
Yeah. Okay. All right, I get it now. I'm just trying to figure out how to frame questions for you. That's what I was trying to get. Shadow, as you said, handing in the character sheet and all that, which I get. I do know a few DMs that feel that way. But when you're running the enemy against when you're running the enemy werewolves against the party, do you change them up at all, or do you just do the vanilla werewolf?
To be honest, I usually don't do werewolves. I'm more a fan of more exotic were creatures.
Okay, that's fair. Any of the were that you use in your campaign, do you do like a vanilla version of them, or do you spice them up? Like technically, you could have a were. I've seen stats for a were dragon, but let's go with that one. Oh, yeah, I've seen stats for that one. That was what was I drinking?
If I'm gonna do something like that, I'm gonna do it like the old classic.
I know. I just had a reaction when I heard "Where Buffalo."
I mean, I read a book once where they did that actually, and it was kind of stupid. But
yeah, what I'll do is I'll make it a mystery. You won't know, and I'll make it a cross between like the original werewolf type of movie and Alien. You won't know what's doing it. You've got to find the clues and then eventually track it down and then find it. And maybe survive and maybe solve the mystery and then move on. I find that if you stick to one, with most of the games I play, the players don't want to be stuck and pigeonholed into vampire hunters or werewolf hunters. They want to go on to something once they've like solved a mission or completed a quest or something like that. They want like something as far away from that as possible, and I like to, provide that because I'll too get bored with. Okay, it's another group of werewolves, or it's more were-rats. After 20 or 30 encounters of something, which is way too many. It's like 29 too many. It just gets stale. There's so many creatures just in the original 3 hardback monster books. And I know there's a crap ton of more monsters to go from, but if you just look at those, you're looking at like over 500 different monsters. And I was talking with some people the other day, listing off monsters they've never encountered in their gaming lives. Like, how many of you run into a Remoraz? Okay, it's a pretty rare thing, but once you've done it, you don't need to do it again.
Oh, you mean in game? You're not talking about in real life? Because I've ran into river rats.
No.
Not river rat, Remoraz.
Remoraz.
It's a monster that I actually have the ability to summon in Neverwinter Online because I acquired one from somewhere and I don't remember where. And
hold on, I've got one right here, I believe.
Picking one up in the game was the first time I'd ever even heard of it.
No, I don't have it here. It's like a big giant
in a monster
cross
manual,
between it's like a cross between a giant insect and a dragon with a molten hot core.
Yeah, it's like it looks in Neverwinter Online. It's like a tunneling creature that looks like an armor-plated centipede that spits dragon breath.
But it also lives in the snow. It's a really weird thing. It comes from the original.
Yeah, I've seen those.
It's very rare, but once you've dealt with one, the novelty is gone. You want to move on to something else.
To answer this, yes, you could make a primate or a gorilla into a were. I've yet to see it. I mean, you could do your own variation of Planet of the Apes.
Platypus? Come on, guys.
This is where I'm going to just step in and just stomp on all over everybody. And you can go ahead and hate me for this. I don't really care. Where lycanthropes are predators, period. At least in my games, a lycanthrope is a predator type animal, typically an apex predator. Something that invokes fear just because it hunts. So no bison, no cows, no no platypus. They are predators.
I was agreeing with the primates in the gorilla one. I can see that. I'm not saying I'd enjoy it, but I can see the argument.
Yeah, no.
I'm reading through Ravenloft right now, and they have these things called were-ravens and ravenkin, and they're actually in this realm of evil. They happen to be one of the only good creatures you'll ever come across. It's actually kind of interesting, but how they work with the Vistani or the Gypsies, depending on how woke you are.
Ravens.
It took me by surprise. Let's put it that way.
So ravens and wolves are a callback to ancient Indo-European death mythos. You could, and the mythos was that when a person died, you would want them to be gazed upon by a wolf or a raven. You could actually do either or, depending on your region. The Norwegians preferred ravens because a lot of their mythos, Odin always traveled with ravens, and they were the envoys of death. They would carry the soul onto the next life.
And in the real world, they actually work together.
Mm-hmm.
They actually
especially carrion ravens.
Yeah, they have this sort of symbiotic relationship that's interesting at the very least.
So I can see ravens in Ravenloft being the carriers of death, but not necessarily not evil. So like where ravens being there and being present.
They're actually good. That's what's really bizarre about it. Okay, is they're like
interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. You hear Ravenloft, you hear the room, you hear the stories from over the years. This is my first expedition into Ravenloft, reading any of the books, and I was expecting ravens are evil, nasty, bird people, or just omens of ill fortune, that sort of thing.
Or Hugin and Munin, who are the emissaries of Odin.
But they're good creatures that might help you out if you earn their trust later on. Kind of like in Beastmaster, those winged things, it was I don't know. I just thought of that for some reason.
Now, give me a second there. Let me think about that. Now, when you have with shadows not lying, is it just nowheres whatsoever in your the way you run it? Just nowheres.
What?
In yours.
Yeah. Let's put it this way, because I was going to get to that. I'm okay with like things like the Kitsune. I think that's how you pronounce it. They're kind of a different situation with all the were creatures. They with all the were creatures, they like Jaide said, they're predators. They're going to hunt, and they're going to give up all that, adventure mentality. At least that's how I see it. I'm sure people would argue, oh no, I want to run a were creature. Well, yeah, well, you're also not going to want to, leave a certain area, and you're probably not going to want to, do the things that adventuring characters want to do. And there's a good chance that you're going to screw up trying to play like a werewolf. And at some point, you're going to have an entire village hunting you down and probably pretty pissed off at your fellow players.
So I'm going to hop on GM Alcove's comment about limited view on ravens and werewolves. Yes, I agree. It is a very limited view on werewolves and or on wolves and ravens of Norse mythology. But I don't have the full 2 hours to myself to go into that. This is mostly we're supposed to be focused on the in-game use of lycanthropy, werewolves, or were creatures in general. I'm not going to expound upon the knowledge I do have, or the mythos I have of the Norse ravens or wolves, mostly because I don't want to be the one to talk the entire night.
Now, I go back to the questions. I'm trying to work this around. I'll start with you, Jay. Do you have more than just the basic vanilla were in you? Do you have the other ones where there were I can't think of the names. You know the names you talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. So I know where you're getting at, and yes, I do. So in a lot of, and this isn't just in game terms, but also in mythos, there are 4 categories of lycanthropy, so to say. One of them is the curse that everybody's familiar with. Everyone's familiar with the curse of lycanthropy, and spreading through bites and claws and near-death experiences.
That might be actual curse where someone puts the curse on you.
Right. But the curse of lycanthropy, where it is a bloodline curse and it's tied to a specific family bloodline, those are the Lugaru. They are the
nightmare fuel. The
monsters, the true monsters. When the transformation happens, they are the beast, but they're not, the 4-legged wolf that goes hunting. No. They are the Krynosian 10-foot tall death machines that go out into the world and kill and hunt, because that is the primal nature of them. I also have in game world, so I have the lycanthropes, the ones that are actually born into the world and are there for a mission for their god or goddess. Those ones I've already talked about. But you also have the Hexenwolf, which is werewolves that or people who take on a magic item that allows them to turn into a wolf, or sometimes even to the Krynosian form of the cursed being. And the magic item it is cursed itself, and it wants to be worn. So the person eventually loses themselves to the wolf pelt or the cursed item, because when they wear it, they feel powerful. They feel this need and want and desire to hunt and bathe in the moonlight, and it kind of drives them towards wanting to always wear this wolf belt, or wolf pelt rather. And that's the Hexenwolf. The other form of werewolves that I have are the warp wolves. These are the wolves, or these are the people who have learned through druidic magic to turn into wolves. So in my more fantasy games or D&D based games, the druids who focus on the wolf motif, they're the warp wolves. In more modern games, it's kind of a lost art, and only a select few people who learn the magic can do so. And then you have the final group that I include occasionally, and they're not the lycanthropes as you might be familiar with from the movies or books. They are the people who believe themselves to become more bestial. They have a primal nature about them, and they try to feed into that primal nature. Yes, lunatics.
Yeah, the first word is being Luna, which is the moon.
Right. And so they believe that they are embodied by the spirit of a wolf. This is especially more in my more modern games. So they believe that they are the body holding the spirit of a wolf, and when they tap into the spirit, they go beyond the mental limiters that prevents people from tearing muscles or not using their full strength, because their mind goes, no, you're going to tear something, you're going to break your arm if you swing that hard. And these people, for some reason, kind of like Malkavians, yeah, but they push beyond the natural inhibitors in a body, so they hit harder. They're more savage. They feed into that wolf-like nature, or that wolf, or what they believe is the wolf spirit. So I mean, those are the categories of werewolves or lycanthropes that I use at my table, depending on the type of game I've got going. So I've got, my fantasy games, classic werewolves. The more modern stuff, I'm definitely going more the lunatic werewolves and the warp wolves, and I will also include the Lugaroo, because who is going to go up against a terrifying Krynosian 10-foot death machine and go, yeah, I want to fight that.
No
when
one
when it's ripping the door off of a Buick and using it as a club.
Anybody wants to get into Valhalla, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Depends on the DM. I've seen people use those as soul eaters. Once the Lugaroo eats you, it absorbs your being and it becomes bigger.
Yeah, I have read of that. I've never used anything like that yet.
I've had a DM do it to us in game. I'm like, what the actual? Check, please. Okay, MarHawkman, in your experience in gaming, have you seen wares used in different ways than normal, or has it just been the vanilla?
Well, again, it's like it depends on setting what kind of were creatures are appropriate. And like I mentioned, like the Star Trek setting is like having people get, affected by something that causes them to degenerate. Yeah, that's totally a thing that happens. But that's not really a proper were creature in the sense of like you would want to play that, because of the fact that it kind of sort of prevents you from doing most of the things your character would normally do. Oh wait, I just remember something. It's like that thing Shadow and Sun mentioned earlier about the whole Kitsune thing. Those are kind of sort of more like fairy spirits almost, in that they were never human in the first place.
Right.
That's
That's
remember
like
what they are.
That's closer to something I would allow, because they're not raging animals.
Yeah, it's like Kitsune are like tricksters that can
the fox creatures. Gotcha.
But they can change from fox form to human form and back. It's just that they aren't really human. They're not cursed with lycanthropy. They're just born that way.
Yeah, depends on the system. They come from the Feywild. It just really depends on your system. But I've seen a lot of people use them as they just, transport from the Feywild. I know they're playable characters in some systems, and they're not in other systems. So your miles may vary on when it comes to those, as Max would say.
Now there are some questions in chat here. Question: can a giant become a werebeast? I would probably say no, because they are of giant breed. They are themselves a unique creature already. I guess it depends on what game system you're talking about. You obviously can make giants into whatever you want at your own table. For me, I would say no. I probably wouldn't have giants become were anythings, simply because my giants aren't necessarily part of the world. They come from elsewhere. And the magic of the lycanthropy doesn't affect them the same as a humanoid.
Right, I'm getting a whole lesson from Grandma about they're Asian spirit
yokai
people, and they can breed with humans. Okay.
Yeah, like with Kitsune, that's actually at several of the classic Japanese mythology stories of a woman a man who is looking for a wife, has never met before, shows up looking for a home, and he eventually finds out after she's given birth to his children that, oh, wait, she was actually a kitsune.
Okay.
Yes, I would say demi-humans, elves, dwarves, halflings, not gnomes. I don't think I would allow a gnome because they are more fey than they are demi-human.
Oh my god. That would be a weird.
Yeah, I don't think I would allow a gnome to become a werewolf only because they have a fey bloodline already.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Just the idea.
I mean, I don't know if I would actually allow full elves to become were creatures either. Again, because of the fey, the connection to the fey realms. But again, that's my table.
I think since it is, I mean, I think I'm there with you. I think half elves could be hit by. I think dwarfs could. Well, if you cut elves out, you have to cut out dwarfs.
Why would one? There's so
because
far
it's cutting
removed
out
from one
gnomes and elves.
Well,
It depends on your system in your table. That's what really breaks down.
I guess it depends on where the origin of the dwarves would lie. If the dwarves, if the origin of the dwarves comes from another realm than the prime material or the human realm, then I would say, yeah, probably not allow them to become were anythings.
Rats. I agree, El. For example, I know this isn't a vampire night, but according to old TSR second edition, all of the non-humans could be vampires. So why couldn't they be were creatures? Unless the GM says so. That's the only.
Yeah, it's the DMs. It's the DMC at the end of the game. If it is legitly used as a curse, then everything underneath the table.
It would, to me. So, in my opinion, and this is again in my opinion, it depends on who or where the curse of lycanthropy started. What was the purpose or origin of that curse?
Right.
Was it because a fae was upset at a human for doing something stupid, because that's what fae do, and they cursed that person to become a werewolf, or an angry god of nature cursed them to become a werewolf? That's one of the origins I've heard. I mean, it to me, it depends on the original origin of the curse, who it can affect. But again, that's how I run my table. Like you do you.
Some of these questions, they're good questions, Jay. Some of these questions, wording them is getting kind of interesting. Are the wares affected by the lunar cycle, or is there a specific trigger that makes them transform? I'll start with you, Shadow. If for the ones you have in your campaign, is it the moon that sets them off? You do Traveler, right?
I do, but I wouldn't do werewolves in Traveler.
An alien werewolf species?
I got better things to do.
I can see it.
With that. To be honest, I would go with the tropes. Lean into him. Change them where it will make the game and the story more exciting, and maybe teach the players not to run verbatim with all the lore they've ever heard. Go ahead with that. Good luck with that silver bullet. That ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna need something way different. To get them off that specific trail. When you're looking for the Achilles heel, that should be a quest unto itself. Find out what is the specific weakness, and unless you're just gonna go, all you need is a +1 weapon, and you just chop them up in little bits, and you're done. Because traditionally, it took something very specific to kill a werewolf. Otherwise, he's just going to regenerate, and come back.
Wolfbane silver. Well, it wasn't. It had to be inherited silver, not just silver you find off somebody's dinner table.
Right, and blood of the martyr, things like that.
Yeah.
Make it something completely that makes sense. Kind of as if you were writing like a ghost story. And how do you dispel the ghosts? You have to find out the very specifics. track down the history, drag them into the story, or just make it easy, quick, and more or less painless.
All right.
Yes, the Thrycreen, or however you pronounce them, which were basic ripoffs of the Arduin frame.
What about you, MarHawkman? When you've seen werewolves or weres used in the past, do they normally use the normal triggers or do something different?
Again, it's just like one of those things. Like it depends. It's like that whole thing with the Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome. People affected by that stay that way until they get cured.
Yeah.
But like that's one example. It's like I posted on Discord that example from Thundar the Barbarian with Zevon. With the people affected by that specific form of lycanthropy, they would actually transform anytime it was night. In the daytime, they looked human. At night time, they looked like werewolves. They had no control over that at all.
All right, Jay, what's the lunar cycle or Pacific targets or all of the above?
So again, I think this goes back, and your mileage may vary on how you use this to affect. Afflicted creatures change at whatever the curse's predisposed time is. They don't get a choice. They don't have the ability to stop it. So if your moon happens to be the once every few years blood moon, that's when you transform, is the blood moon. If your transformation happens on the waning gibbous, well, guess what? That's when it happens, every waning gibbous. I mean, for the most part, we go by the full moon because of tradition, because of mythos here on Earth. The time of lunacy. So if that's how you want to run it, go for it. Lean into it. There's plenty of lore that you can add from our world into yours. But if you want to spice things up a bit, like, oh, well, all these things happened and it wasn't even a full moon last night. It was only a waning gibbous. Okay, so it can't be lycanthropy, right? Or can it? Why can't it? So whatever your werebeast's trigger is, set it and keep a timer on it. Keep it going and remember where you put it at. For my natural born lycanthropes or shape changers, they are in full control of their transformation. They're much like the druids, the ability to shapeshift at will. They typically don't assume the war form or Krynos form unless they absolutely have to. But again, they are in full control. And most of them choose to take animal form more often than Krynos form, because who's going to suspect a random wolf wandering through the woods near a village as being a warp wolf or a werewolf who is the protector of the valley? Like, who's going to suspect just this one wolf out there alone protecting the valley, and then people come up and try to bandits come into the valley and try to take it over, and suddenly they start getting picked off one by one and nobody knows why.
That's fair. That is how was I agree, I like that answer. I really do. MarHawkman, I was going back to that Star Trek episode you're talking about. You said it was it like a virus that just ran rapid through the
Basically, yeah. It's like
crew?
I mean, this was actually one of those episodes where having an android as part of your crew was a great thing, because androids don't have problems with human diseases. Yeah. Anyway,
Now,
in some ways, it actually worked very much like the whole like underworld thing, because like anyone exposed to it starts to transform, and it's not just like an immediate switch. It's like, oh, you're cursed now. It's like they like slowly transform over a period of hours or days, and eventually, it's just that Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome. The intelligence level that you have after you're transformed depends on exactly what it turns you into, and that's somewhat variable. And the least badly affected person was Riker, who was turned into a primate, but one of the closer to human primates. So he kind of acted like a chimpanzee. Didn't look like a chimpanzee exactly, but he kind of acted like one.
How did I miss this episode?
You're not missing much.
Okay.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
The
The whole disease plot was literally the entire episode. It's one of those things that you could like put in this like half the length.
You could skip it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious. I remember.
It's memorable for having an interesting premise, not for actually being a particularly compelling story.
I remember the black gentleman with the eye visors turning into an alien because he.
No, it wasn't.
What?
Jordy?
It wasn't that one. Yeah, it wasn't
Jordy. It
Jordy.
wasn't that one. It was a different one where he was turning into an alien. But that's the only one I remember them turning into anything other than just base. Their base species.
Isn't that the one where Data comes in at the end with a strobe light and cures them all?
Yeah, it was a weird episode.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to our topic at hand. Depends on the creature, on the wearer, what the trigger is. I will always most likely keep werewolves being triggered by the moon. It's good. I mean, it's not good, but it's solid. I can live with that. I mean,
it's a trope.
Tradition.
With the moon having multiple different meanings or gods and all that, depending on the process of your system, I just stick it with that. But with other creatures, maybe with a tiger, it's not a full moon, but a red moon, the Luna Cacciatore, the hunter's moon. I'll mix it up that way. But triggers, most of it is when they get hot, when they not heat, but when they start losing their temper, when I'll start making the players make con saves, because not fortitude saves, depends on your system, but fortitude con saves to keep in control of their temperament.
And that's actually what happened to the character I played, and set the Wayback Machine to like 25-ish years ago. I was playing a monk character who was very, from this militaristic society, and things just kept going wrong for that character. Everything would just fall apart, fall to pieces. And this was a thing that had happened to him for, I want to say, probably 8 months in the game. So like almost a year for me as a player, and things are just falling apart constantly. So eventually the character just got so enraged at something. And then the game master said, okay, make a will save. I'm like, okay, but why? He's like, no, you don't get to know why. Just make a will save. Okay. I failed the will save. I rolled a nat 1. Again, I roll the inverse bell curve. If it's a roll over system, I'm screwed. If it's a roll under system, I'm golden.
That's a good question.
So no, I rolled a nat 1, and he said, all right, you go into a blackout rage. You don't know what happens. You're unconscious now. Okay. And then he described the scene of my character waking up in just utter carnage. My character had transformed into a were-tiger and went on an absolute rampage. I was no longer allowed to take monk levels after that. And I thought it was actually kind of awesome. It's like, for once the character's actually doing something because it's not controlled by dice rolls. How about that? It wasn't me doing it, but oh well. It was a good moment for me to go, you know what? I'm okay with this. Just go.
L, what if there is more than one moon like Dragonlance or Tatooine? Well, I don't think there's werewolves in Star Wars. I mean, I don't think there's werewolkies. I just don't see it.
Well, I think what he's getting at is that if you have the cycles of the moon influence whether or not the were creatures are able to transform, how exactly would you do that? And well, Skyrim actually has a system of tracking the phases of both moons separately.
Just do it however you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
For me, so my game world does actually have 3 moons. One of them is actually a gas giant that's visible from the planet, but that's beside the point. The 2 moons, the red moon and the blue moon, they closely orbit within one. One passes in front of the other while in orbit, but it takes a year for that to happen. So I do have the multiple moons issue, and I assign it to the blue moon for the most part. It's only there's one cursed being who transforms at the eclipse of both moons, and he is stricken with the curse of immortality and this bestial nature. So the individual has gone underground every time the eclipse happens because he either wants to die to the things that live in the Underdark, or he doesn't want to be above ground to witness the destruction of an entire civilization.
Fair enough. I was thinking
that character pissed off somebody.
I was thinking about how the origin scenario, and I'm actually in a campaign right now that a mutual friend of mine, Jaide, is the DM, and werewolves were basically created by a god in Faerun that she felt sorry for this tribe that was living way up in the far north of the world. So to help them, she turned them into werewolves because they could survive in the harshness of weather and that one. And so it kind of removes the alignment restriction. All werewolves are evil. Not saying they're not werewolves. There are not werewolves that are evil. Just it's not a full blanket.
Well, I mean, you also have to consider that the reason why the afflicted werewolves are considered evil is they don't want the curse. They are trying to get rid of the curse. They never wanted it to begin with.
And in some settings, they literally can't control their bestial nature at all.
Oh yeah, I get that.
And so they not only can't control the curse, but they never wanted it to begin with. They got it by happenstance, and they hate their cursed life. So why not share in the misery?
Misery loves
and that's
company.
what drives them to evil. Is they're sharing in the misery.
That's actually one of the things about the Underworld movies that was an interesting twist to their version of werewolves, is that in Underworld they actually have 2 different things: werewolves and Lycans. Lycans can control themselves. Werewolves can't.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. Now, this is going to sound weird, but bear with me. For those who have werewolves or were in your campaign, are they hunted for their magical organs, or can they be used into magical items or magical spells or potions? I'll start with you, Shadow. Have you ever did a black market werewolf hide sell?
No.
I've seen it done. That's why I had to ask. I've actually seen it done.
That's no, just I can't even think of why.
Magic unless
the game is going to be, really heavy in the were creatures, like in all you guys are going to fight for the next 6 months is going to be were creatures, then why? Otherwise, you just you kill them and you move on. If the campaign is going to be centered around something like that, yeah, it would make sense that the local population would be looking for, werewolf gizzards or whatever to make resistance or even control potions, which in the old days used to be kind of a thing where you could, if you drank the right potion, you could control a limited number of them for a limited amount of time, which would be great. Rush them into the
treat them like limits,
the tiger traps,
Lemons,
and they fall into pits that are coated with spikes that just so happen to be coated with silver. Werewolf problem is all over. Call it a night, that kind of thing. Hunt them down like the animals that they are. But otherwise, I can't imagine why you would do that.
Okay. Like I said, I had a book handed to me once. It had monster magical item parts that are used for different things. I just kind of shuddered at some of the things in there. What about you, Jaide?
Yeah, so it depends on the time period, for one, and the belief system of the people. If I'm playing a Bronze Age game, oh yeah, werewolf parts are going to be presumed as mystical in nature. They're going to be hunted for their wolf pelts to be able to for people to be able to transform into the wolves. Hence the origin of the wolf pelt cursed item. You hunt one of the warp wolves down, you take their pelt from them. Well, in their dying breaths, they curse the pelt, and now you're wearing it, becoming the wolf, and you're going to want to keep wearing it until it kills you or gets you killed. In the more primitive times, teeth, bones, blood, organs, whatever might you can think of, is going to have some kind of mystical nature to it, some kind of connection, and people are mysticism are going to want to use it. As time becomes more advanced into fantasy or even like medieval times, a lot of that stuff goes away. Apothecaries might go, oh yes, I need the fang of a warp wolf to make this thing. So you might get some of that still occasionally, even in more fantasy settings. Fast forward to the modern settings, it's only in the extreme occult that you're going to find people in the black market trade for werewolf parts. Because most modern medicines in that game would be able to alleviate a lot of those things. But again, the occult in a more modern setting or even a future setting, they're still going to have a presence, and they're still going to want to use their occultism to the greatest effect, and they might need rare ingredients. Could you imagine a cultist trying to capture a living specimen of a werewolf, and then having the pack go absolutely nuts, in rampaging through the city looking for their youngest member, all because one idiot decided, hey, yeah, I'm going to take a werewolf and I'm going to use it for parts. Imagine trying to be the party during, again, a modern setting, being a party member and being like, how are we going to stop these werewolves from literally tearing the city down to its core and draining everyone here of blood because one individual decided to be an absolute idiot?
I would say fire,
set your party.
Fire.
Fire and fire power. Just imagine a party of like 20 or 30 Lugaroo Rhinosian death machines marching on a city. What is a human party going to do, or a human elf dwarf party in a modern setting going to do against that? Move. Good luck.
Teleport entire house.
That is a terrifying scenario, though, and it's like one of those was like the whole you're facing an army of superhumanly powerful monsters. Where are you going to find an army of superhumanly powerful monster hunters?
But that was actually a scenario that was used for a Hunter. I think it was Hunter the Vigil game. The Hunter.
Yeah, that feels like something World of Darkness would do.
Yep, it was. So we, the Hunters, had gotten word that there was a party, a entire clan of werewolves descending upon the city. We're like, we don't have the resources to put down an entire clan. what is going on? And then that's what we found out is one occultist decided that they were going to be stupid and capture a young wolf that they thought was a lone wolf. Whoops. And I think only one player character died in that entire thing.
It's just bad.
Everybody else nearly died.
That's just circling back. Okay, did I ask everybody that question?
When did they transform?
Yes.
Yes,
We kind of went on a different. We stayed in topic, but went on a different tangent. In my head, just kind of like, wait, snap back to the question. I don't know if I've asked this. I don't know how many of you guys were going to be able to answer. Is like what my main thought processing is. But what kind? And I'll start with you, Jay, and I'll just kind of work it around for everybody else. What kind of wares would you allow? In your campaign? Not going with Hex and Beast, not going with the Lugaroo, not going with the Warp Wolf, as you said, but actual wares. Which of?
Oh, okay. So classical D&D lycanthropy out of the monster manual, basically. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you've kind of painted me into the corner of only D&D or fantasy-esque game.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about World of Darkness. I imagine you can be multiple different wares, and most of these other ones, you just had to have the DM that's willing to put in the work, as I said earlier, and the player. I mean,
yeah, player and game master has to do the research on those. But if you're gonna paint me into the corner of like which ones do I allow for, like, let's say D&D.
Well, your homebrew. Let's not forget D&D.
In my homebrew. In my homebrew, any humanoid, and any predator mammal is what I allow.
So bats,
but
they're a predator and they're a mammal.
They are not an apex predator. No, it's got to be one of the apex predators.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to.
For me, again, for my game world, it's got to be any humanoid and any apex mammal predator.
All right.
That's what I allow in my game world.
MarHawkman, if you were to do a fantasy-based RPG, what would you allow?
It depends on the source of the curse. The source of the curse determines what form the curse takes. And while I mentioned the Varka's protomorphosis thing, it takes on a variety of forms depending on which alien species you're looking at in that particular example. But another example from Thundar the Barbarian that I hadn't thought of previously is Gorn. There's this one episode where this guy who is trying to fight a wizard, and the wizard hits him with some sort of magic whammy that causes him to turn into a 12-foot tall monster and go on a rampage. But like it's a kind of like the whole Krynos werewolf thing, except it's not a wolf. It's some sort of dragon-like mutated thing that you would expect to see in Warhammer, because it's just that off the wall bizarre. Like, I mean, like he has like a human head that now has fangs and shaggy hair, a pair of wings sticking out of his back, but one of his arms is also now a giant snake with a head and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, like it's a curse to like cripple someone mentally, anyways. Physically, well, now he's trashing his former allies.
All right. Shadow, if you were in a weird mood, and you're going,
actually, it's really easy because I have. I had forgotten about this game most of you have never heard of called Chill, and it is way back, made by a company called Pace Setter. And for the most part, the game was you were the monster hunters in modern day 1980s, let's just say, globe trotting around the world looking to hunt down these creatures for this organization, blah, blah, blah. But they came out with a supplement called Creature Feature. And I guarantee, there you go, I guarantee it was the inspiration for the show, both British and English or American, of being human, because it allowed you to play werewolves, vampires and ghosts. Maybe I don't remember. That wouldn't surprise me, Fritz. But and I think there might have been other things in there that you could play. You could play the vampire character, you could play the werewolf, the ghost, etc. And I did run that game for a while, and I think one of my friends was actually a werewolf, but we only played it a couple of times. So if people wanted to, it is, but it's a completely different game from the first edition box set. I actually have both editions, and I wasn't impressed with the second edition, as it were. But it was fun. The regular game was actually a lot of fun, and it had a lot of that sort of supernatural TV show crossed with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, kind of a mixture of that. So if those particular players of mine said, "Hey, Halloween's coming up, let's get the old Groovy Ghoulies back together," I'd be like, "Sure, why not?"
Okay. I think.
Do you remember Groovy Ghoulies? Am I the only one? I bet Fritz remembers.
Was it the Scooby-Doo cartoon where the monster kids were in school with Scooby-Doo and Shaggy?
Nah, they were more like literally like 1960s kind of hippie versions of Dracula the Wolfman.
Okay.
This weird sort of hot rod looking car, and yeah, it was just
there you go. Six Nations got the best wear out there. You're muted.
I mean, honey badgers are definitely predators.
Oh my God, Fritz! I can't believe that you
werebear. I mean, a were honey badger, because honey badgers doesn't give a darn.
Yep.
I mean, if you actually want to see what honey badger can do, go to YouTube and type in honey badger versus the lion.
You'd have to go with were mongoose, and that way you could hunt down all the lizard and snake men, right, Fritz? Right?
I mean, that would be accurate.
There were these two race car drivers. One was mongoose and one was snake. It was kind of a thing way back.
Oh, I think I had those as hot rods. Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels.
Yeah, because I remember one of them being like a cobra looking thing. Yeah, anyways, in my favorite.
I'm just trying to pull out all the old.
Oh, what was that old with the mongoose, Ready Tat Tat or something like that? It's an old cartoon. I'm showing my age here. Unlike this guy. This guy right here, he's been in movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, amongst others. I think he actually played the original caveman in Iceman, the movie, but that's besides the point.
Wow, dude.
He knows it's all from love. All right.
Yeah, but I don't want people vetting me, or doxing me, want my autograph.
Yes, that's the one.
Oh yeah.
Where, if you were running a campaign where you were allowing people to run wares, where would you tell them to go for ideas?
Ooh.
I mean, there's a series of being human.
Yeah, even because I've watched both series, and even though it's set in a modern day era, there were enough things in it that kind of explored the human condition that I think it would still be valid as a way to explore things besides just combat. I know that's kind of blasphemous, but there are some people out there that like to explore other aspects of the game, not just the combat.
So if I'm putting together a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, I'm gonna point people towards more heroic movies or movies that show the beast, the hero that is a beast. Maybe even maybe Vikings to get some inspiration for some of their character ideas. Because again, Werewolf the Apocalypse, the werewolves themselves, the players are the werewolves. They are fighting the apocalypse. They are fighting to prevent Ragnarok. So I'm going to point them towards heroic aspects and focus in on, even in self-sacrifice. If you can prevent the apocalypse by just one more day, you have won that day. Again, but that's the kind of the idea behind Werewolf the Apocalypse is you're pushing back the apocalypse one day at a time, one fight at a time. It's not every day, but it is most days for them. Because the encroaching apocalypse is coming. They know they're going to lose eventually. It's the fight that matters.
Okay. MarHawkman?
What was the question again? Sorry, I got distracted by reading L in chat.
It's if you were going to run a werewolf-based game, where would you send people for ideas on how to play their characters?
Honestly, I kind of liked the way that they explored the whole idea of being not entirely human in the Underworld movies. I mean, yes, they had a lot of stuff in there along with it, but they actually did have moments in there where they, like, oh, you want to eat a nice steak and potato thing. Yeah, well, you because you're now half vampire, eating potatoes is going to make you puke. That was actually something I found to be a very interesting moment in the movies, because yes, this is the downside to being, whatever you are now.
A monster?
Sure, we can go
Yeah.
with
I
that.
don't know it's always a monster. I think some people might count it as a blessing.
Well, in his case, though, he genuinely wasn't sure how this was going to work out, because he's the guy who got bitten by a werewolf and a vampire, and thus it's
he was an abomination.
It's not quite the same
it's an
as being a
abomination.
vampire or a werewolf.
Yeah,
the pure werewolves in Underworld, just give them a raw steak and they're cool with that. But a vampire, no.
Those are some good ones. Six Nations.
Six Nations. I like if I'm gonna do it, or if I have a DM that's gonna allow me to play one, because I do. There was a series that came out in the mid 2000s on HBO that was interesting called Teen Wolf, and they went through a lot of different monsters, myth and monsters in there. Werewolves were the main one, but they had banshees and hellhounds and a bunch of other mythology type creatures in there that I thought was kind of interesting. But when it comes to Underworld, I would skip all of them except for Rise of the Lycans. I just would outrightly ignore the rest of them. If you're trying to play more of a, if it's a, I like
true werewolf game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a couple books out there that are interesting when it comes to werewolves out there. Of course, I'm going to promote one of the Jim Butcher books, but it's not one of his better ones in the series. But it did come across Lycanthropy and all of it.
Full Moon.
Yeah, it wasn't one of his better books, but you definitely get a good rundown on it. I think those would probably. I mean, American Werewolf in London's great. American Werewolf in Paris was not great, but was still interesting. Uh,
I never saw that one.
You're not missing much. The CGI was horrible. Good story, Silver Bullet. The problem with these, in my opinion, and these are great choices, but these are not the heroes that are werewolves. These are the DMs who
The monsters.
want to have the monsters be pure nasty pieces of work. I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the other side of being a werewolf is if you are embracing the monster within to achieve your goal, you're going to leave a body count. You're going to shed blood.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
You have to be okay with that as being a monster.
Any murder hobo adjacent D&D party is going to end up that way too.
I mean, and being and Werewolf the Apocalypse, like, yeah, you're gonna stack up a body count. Like you're gonna have to get over that. Like you might be the hero who pushes back the apocalypse, but you're going to leave a trail of bodies. Like it's not a clean game. You have to be aware of that to begin with.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And you as game masters, you have to set the expectation that if you're running a werewolf game, a game where the players are the werewolves or the lycanthropes of some kind or another, you have to set the expectation of you are monsters. Your goals are noble. Like your goal is to be the heroes, but you are also monsters, and you are going to leave a trail of destruction behind you. And people are and the common folk are going to hate, despise, and hunt you. You're going and you just set that expectation at the very beginning, because that is what it means to be a monster.
I mean, that's actually something that I've had come up in Hyperborea games is, sometimes players in Hyperborea can get transformed into something that's not human. And you are like, oh, well, I'm stuck with being a fish person now. Okay, fine. But, you're a fish person. You walk into a human town and they're like, oh, look, there's a fish person there. Why is there a fish person there?
Grandma, that is horrifying.
That's
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, Jade. Just no.
I'm not sure what she's talking about, but I vaguely recall a Looney Tunes cartoon when they had like edgy, weird stuff before they tried to make it kidified, where they actually experimented with the concept of having like were creatures that had Tasmanian devil instead of wolf in them. I don't remember the exact specifics.
I used to do a pretty good Taz. I can't anymore. I was about to. Like, just stop. Okay. How do you guys handle not the when they're turning into the werewolf? It being the bad guy or the good guys in some of our games, but it's the first time. How do you handle that? I'll start with you, Shadow. When the party runs against the person who's the big bad or minor bad who's a werewolf and he turns, how do you handle that?
With my best narration skills, just try to make it weird and creepy and disturbing, and make sure that it happens quick enough so that the party can't take advantage of the situation. Maybe do mostly that they hear the sounds of it happening, maybe see the shadow on the wall of it happening, but they're not close enough to get in a couple of cheap shots before the transformation is complete.
Yeah, I can dig that. What about you, MarHawkman?
I know that I've said this several times before. It's just like it depends on the setting. It's like
That's
it's
a fine answer. I mean, it's an honest answer. At least.
It's because it's like the example from the Star Trek Adventures thing. It's like the actual transformation process there for the Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome is extremely slow. Like you just slowly get turned over a period of hours. It's not one of those things where you're just like, oh, say you're a monster now. Yeah. But like Yeah, then there's that example I gave of Gorn and Zevon, where, it's like, okay, magic whammy time. Poof.
All right. And Jade?
Yeah. So, all right. It's, I guess, depending on if the party knows they're going up against a werewolf already. If the party knows that they're hunting a Lycan, it's going to happen off screen. They're going to come in like an absolute wrecking ball out of the blue. I'm not going to let them see the transformation because I already know what my murder hobo group's going to do. They're going to encircle it and beat it till it dies. Even if silver weapon is the only thing that can actually harm it and everything else just bounces off, they're going to still group up and hit it until it's unconscious, or attempt to, and flail meaninglessly at it. If the party hasn't figured out that they're up against a lycanthrope yet or a werewolf, I keep a pack of skewers in the basement where I game, and if they haven't figured it out, I'm going to go get up, move around, because I do that as a game master. I get up and move around. I'm going to find that pack of skewers. I think it's actually over there somewhere. And during the transformation scene, they're going to hear things first. They're going to hear the person screaming in pain as I start cracking the skewers to make the sounds like bones are snapping and forming and misshaping inside the body. I'm going to make it an auditory experience as well as this visceral thing that's happening to somebody, either on screen or off screen. And then once they've come to the realization, oh, that's the bad guy, and he is going to turn into this 10-foot tall killing machine, what do we do next? That's what I want my players to know is, or to think is, it'd be like, why do I hear snapping sounds? Why do I hear somebody screaming in pain? What's going on? And when somebody makes the realization, oh, those snapping sounds are bones or joints popping. Why? And that's when the reveal happens, and it's going to be this visceral beast that's in front of them now. The drooling fangs, mouth agape, and eyes filled with bloodlust.
Okay. I've done it a couple different ways. With one where at first they hear laughter. They're chasing the guy out of town, or they're chasing the guy, and all of a sudden he just kind of stops and looks up and starts laughing like a madman. And next thing you know, he's on the ground and his skin is ripping and his hair is falling out. Then there's the beast has emerged. That's one of my favorite ways to do it, just because it catches them off guard. If I do it, the laughing catches most players off guard, I find. The other one, for my own personal one, is I'm playing a character that can turn into a werewolf, and he has complete control over his faculties. He takes off his pants, holds it out to the person who's staying behind, because you know how expensive pants are to replace every time you biff out. He's like, hold my pants. And then I will just start running down towards the guy. As I'm running, I turn into a werewolf. But I'm buck-ass naked because I don't want to rip my clothing. I mean, to me, that makes sense.
I mean, if you have control over it, sure.
That actually reminds me of how you would notice a certain style of dress in the Underworld movies, because of the fact that the people who were Lycans in the Underworld movies would wear clothes that wouldn't be permanently destroyed whenever they transformed. Easily discardable clothing.
A friend of mine has told me that, my character should wear a kilt because it just falls off. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. I do like, though, the American Werewolf in Paris. I think American Werewolf in London probably had the best transforming scene for the pure horror of a person turning into a werewolf.
I think I'd actually go with Howling or Wolfen, one of the two. I can't remember which one. American Werewolf was was pretty new in the genre.
Yeah.
And the technology. It's kind of like watching that scene in Total Recall where Arnold and the girl are outside and their faces are all, it was like you knew it was fake. I mean, you couldn't not know that Arnold bulging eyes thing wasn't, just 100%.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking when he was dressed up like an old woman and the head came off and he blow up, it was
That was actually pretty good. But the end scene where they're outside and they're waiting for the atmosphere is finally turning on and they're all bulgy eyes and stuff. I was just I literally was laughing. It was so bad the first time I saw that.
all right. I know how Jade's gonna feel about this question. When you were doing werewolves as the enemies in your campaign, I know balance is a false god, and but how do you keep it? Because some of the stats I've seen for wares compared to the players are just like, holy crap! There's the CR difference is huge. How do you keep it where the players have half of a chance, not a full chance, but like a half of the chance to pull it off, pull off the hat trick? How do you deal with that? I'll start with you, Shadow.
I don't understand. Hold on. I don't use CRs, so.
All right. Let's find another way to word this.
How do you keep your fights between players and lycanthropes fair? Let's say it that way.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
There's what the hell is that?
The question right here, and it's a dumb question, but I'm trying to work
What kind of rules are those? Come on. Sometimes you're supposed to run away. Sometimes you get the bear, and sometimes the werewolf gets you.
Hey, this is why if I ever go camping, I'm going with somebody that has worse knees than I do. Just throwing that out there.
I got a better idea.
Don't go camping?
No.
Oh.
Don't be unarmed. Mother Nature hates us. It's spending every waking second of its existence trying to kill us. The least we could do is return the favor.
Cows are tasty. Anyways, what about you?
Bear's tasty too.
Bears.
I have actually eaten bear chili, and that was quite good.
I've had bear before, and I thought it was kind of greasy, but that's just me.
Well, see, it's like when you make it into chili, the beans absorb the grease, so yes, the grease is in there somewhere, but it's not like immediately on your tongue.
Predators are just greasy anyway.
So are some of the people I know. Anyways, getting back to it. What about you, Jade? How do you like? I mean, if you have a group of murdering hobos, I know you just let the son of a bitch off the leash.
Yeah. So this again, it depends on the game system you're running. Certain game systems will advise you to run monsters a particular way. That being said, like 3.5 Path or D&D 3.5, they're locked in at whatever numbers are there. Granted, you as the game master can always increase those numbers, give class levels or whatever. For something like Index Card RPG, no, it's not a fair fight. My Lugaroo is going to have 4, maybe 5 actions per round, per turn. My players... Well, no. So my players get an action and a move every round. My big bad monster, my Lugaroo, on his turn can take up to 5 actions.
Right.
And a move is an action for a monster. But he's also going to have special powers or abilities or attacks. And it's not necessarily claw, bite, or anything like that. No, it's like a raking claw that's going to rend armor. So I'm going to be reducing my player's armor value in one attack. My next movement, I'm going to sprint across the battlefield using a single move to go far distance, and I'm going to skewer the cleric on my claws because take out the healer. So I mean, my Lugaroo fight is not going to be fair. However, if my players have been picking up on all of the clues leading up to them encountering the Loup-Garou, if they are smart enough and they're able to figure it out and find all the things they need to know before they get to that fight, they are going to have a chance. Slim or not, there will still be a chance for them to squeak out a victory. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be messy. But there is a possibility. Now, if they have been, like I said, if they've been paying attention to all the clues, all the signals, they will likely have found the weakness item, the anathema to the Loup-Garou. It's going to be silver more than likely, because that's the trope, is silver. But it's not going to be just any silver. It's going to be gifted silver. It's going to be silver that was given to someone, and it is a sacrifice to use that silver as a weapon. It has to be a personal sacrifice to end the cursed being Loup-Garou. So, again, they're going to have the clues. They're going to be. I'm going to spell it out for them over the course of the entire night of. And through different scenes as they go through them and ask questions and interact with the environment, they're going to find out information. It's what they do with that information. If they can put the puzzle pieces together over the course of the night, they're going to have a fighting chance. If they don't put any puzzle pieces together and they're just murder hobos, I am going to make the floor run a river of blood. And I'm not going to care because they missed everything.
That's incredibly fair. You say 4 attacks, and I'm thinking of Jesse's lion or whatever the hell he had in Wrath.
Oh, yeah, in Wrath of the Righteous.
Wrath of the Righteous, where it's like 10 attacks. I'm like, wait. Claw,
Nope.
claw. What?
More. It was this monk hybrid nonsense that could turn into this like were-tiger thing that got like 20 attacks in a single round. It was insane.
I'm sorry, I know that's not the point, but I was just sort of thinking when you said more, I'm like, ugh.
The idea I have in my head is basically kind of like this feral frenzy thing, where it's like the were creature has like a list of options that it can use as each of its actions. It just gets several actions.
Yeah, I mean, depends on the system. I mean, when I'm thinking of this question, I'm thinking I've only played World of Darkness once, and it was the D10 tabletop variation of it. And I know you can be the Winchesters. You could play, and that if you make the Winchesters, and I'm thinking, how would the Winchesters deal with a werewolf? A Bruja or something like that, werewolf. And that was more or less the kind of the question I was going to lean to with you, Mike. But I couldn't just. Sorry, I didn't get there. My head wasn't quite all there with that one. But so with Riker being a monkey in Star Trek, God, I'm gonna get dinged. With Riker being a primate were thing, how would you handle if you're doing that as a campaign? If that was a campaign you're going to run there, MarHawkman, and you still had a few people on board that weren't, well, I'm not going to say Data because I think Data was overpowered in my opinion for it as a character. How would you handle that? It's like your players haven't been infected. How would you handle the mutants from the rest of from the normal ones?
Well, like to a certain extent, once they get past a certain point, they basically just become NPCs because they can't really do the things that a player would do.
What? No, I'm not asking how you do with the affected. I'm asking how would you run it with the normals? The normals being the players and the infectees being the bad of the week.
Well, see, the way that the plot we did went was that the player group encountered a outpost on a planet that only had a few dozen people on it, because it's one of those many outposts the Federation sets up where it's a planet that they nominally claim as territory, but haven't actually set up a proper colony on yet because they're studying it for scientific purposes. Because this planet has a weird thing in its biosphere, and they're not sure what it is or whether it's actually safe. And oh wait, surprise, it wasn't. And in this particular case, we arrive at the colony at a point where the majority of the people in the colony have been affected by this for several days. So as soon as we get off of our shuttlecraft, we are immediately attacked by something like 6 of them. Because, they're acting aggressively because, well, that's one of the things with Vargas Protomorphosis syndrome is that it makes you go crazy and do things that are more like bestial, instinctive actions than, thoughtful, reasoned actions.
The more and more I hear you talk about this episode, I think in the back of my head, I could be wrong, but it sounds like Star Trek took a swing at the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, because one of the things with the original episode is that it didn't have people consistently devolve, and some of the devolutions were very idiosyncratic. Like, for some reason, Barclay took on spider-like characteristics. Why would a human turn into a spider? That doesn't make sense.
Why would a male human turn into a spider? Now, if a female turned into a Black Widow, I can kind of see it.
Well,
I said kinda. I know you want to argue against that, Jade. I kind of see it.
The way Barclay did it was more like a Goliath bird eater because he spun a web surrounding the entire warp core of the ship.
Oh God! Wait, I think I have seen this. At least bits and pieces of it.
Well, it might be one of those episodes you watched once and then just like halfway forgot. Anyway, though, but the TTRPG version of this that we played through wasn't on board the Enterprise. It was on board this colony. We had to walk to the colony building in order to find out what was going on. And along the way, we had to deal with a bunch of the mutated colonists doing, mutated colonist things.
Gotcha. Deanna Troi turning into a Black Widow. I can see it.
She actually turned into a salamander.
Okay, I quit. I quit. What did Picard turn into? I don't.
Picard was actually the one person who you never saw transform because of the fact that he wasn't on the ship when the whole thing got started.
Yeah, he wasn't about to get all dolled up in that goofy makeup. It's like, no, write me out of this episode.
The scary one was actually Worf, because he's a Klingon, and the idea they were going with is that Klingons evolved from some sort of armored insect. And thus, Worf is turned into this 8-foot-tall monster that actually has the physical strength to beat down one of the sickbay doors. The sickbay doors that under normal circumstances you need 2 or 3 phasers set to a cutting beam to cut open, and he's just punching it open.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Donald, do you have any further questions about game use of lycanthropes?
What are the cures? Are there cures?
Ooh.
Now, divine.
Yeah, silver bullet.
What?
Silver bullet.
Oh, good Lord. What if a silver bullet doesn't work?
Oh, it'll work.
No. Hypothetically, you're running a Greek-based game in Diana, the goddess of the hunt, right? You have to get I don't want the cheap answers. I want good answers. Yes, there's a lot. Yeah, Scott, you're absolutely right. Remove curse. That's a cheap answer. I want honest answer, real thought out questions. What do? Do you make it where they have to eat the heart out of the thing that bit them? Do they have to find a statue of a goddess that has a silver arrow? I mean, it can't be any silver arrow. It has to be divine civil era, whatever disintegration. You know what, Scott? That's not a cheap answer. I will let you have that one up until
Neither's
you run
force
up
cage,
against
but
something that can send the spell back at you. I've seen it. It's horrifying.
it's awesome. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
We
Yeah.
only got about 10 minutes left. I want one really good answer other than silver bullet from everybody here.
well, I have three because like I've given several examples of things with people getting transformed. So I'm just going to go with the cures that were presented for each of those. Oh wait, no, I actually used 4 examples, so I'll go with all 4. The Hyperborea examples, some of those are completely unreversible because of the fact that you've just, it literally says you were permanently transformed and you have to get transformed into something else to not be that anymore. In the case of Gorn in Thundar, they basically just reused remove curse on him, and eventually, and that's just how that went down. Then you have, let's see here, Zevon. The werewolves in that episode had to be dunked in the reflecting pool of the Washington Monument because reasons. It's such a random cure that
Plot
even
reasons that make
in
no
the
damn sense.
episode, no one has any idea why. Thunder liked to go with the whole telling things from the perspective of the main characters, and anything that the main characters didn't know the answer to, the viewer usually didn't know the answer to either. And no one, not even Zevon, knew why the reflecting pool would cure the werewolves. And then there's the Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome, because where you have to do like some sort of extra special science-based cure, and it's in universe incredibly complicated. In that particular TTRPG module that I played through, that was the entire point of it, is to find the cure, because you're kind of stuck there and you don't want to get turned into, mindless monsters.
That's fair. I forgot to say, I want to hear everybody's answers, but there's only going to be one right answer, and we'll get to the wrong right answer after I hear everybody's answer. Although, I like what L was thinking. 12 virgins dancing nude under the same moon. I like what you're thinking there. That's awesome. All right. Jay, do you want to jump on the grenade?
Sure. So it depends on the curse. Depends on the being that put the curse in place in the first place. If the being was cursed by a god, there is no cure. Death is the only way out. But you would also probably be under the same curse. Under that same curse, you'd be prohibited from killing yourself, or incapable of doing so.
God, I know how those churches work out.
You're welcome. But no, it really depends on who put the curse on, what the curse is for, or the reason behind the curse to begin with. And if it's removable or not. Afflicted curses such as surviving a werewolf bite or claw, it's likely going to be you have a limited window to save the person before the next full moon. And it's going to involve some esoteric knowledge that has been lost to time, that you're going to have to spend almost the entire month trying to figure out, all the riddles and whatnot of ancient, texts and whatnot, just for a hope that it might be the cure. And Scott even said it right there. Why does there have to be a cure? Some beings, when they're cursed, they're done. That's it. That's the end of the line. And sure, there could be an epic journey or quest to try to remove the curse, only to find out or learn that no, they're just a doomed person now, and they're gonna have to live with that.
Like with Underworld, it's like you start out as a human, you get exposed to the thing that turns you into either a vampire, werewolf, or both, and now you're stuck that way.
I refuse to accept the middle. That was an abomination, and those have no place in the real world, or in fantasy, or in literature. I'm sorry, not to sound like a dick, but that was some lazy ass writing. What about you, Shadow? I know you're going to say silver, 50 caliber, 100 yards
I
back
mean,
on a
a 10
starting
a
knife.
103 shell does a lot of damage.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I can't think of mind you, I think I if I saw any of the Underworld movies, I don't remember them. But all of the old classics, the werewolf dies, the curse is gone. That's it. You know, I think nothing better, nothing else is going to continue that legacy, that feeling at the end of sadness, and pity when the werewolf dies, and he's no longer suffering. Everything else is just too weak. We're too accustomed these days to there's always a way out. There are some things in life that there's no way out, and for me, if the player's cut off his head or whatever, as long as it dies so that it can't transfer itself to someone else, there's no spreading of the disease or the curse or whatever. That's the best you're going to get, because usually the curse is when you meet up with the curse, it's been around for a long time, from generation or victim to victim to victim. If you can finally put an end to it, you've rid the world of an evil and a suffering permanently. You chalk that up for a win, and know that there was a price to pay, but the world is now a better place when the sun comes up the next day.
Now, crafting has a question, by the way. Can you kill a werewolf besides just with silver, like blowing it to 1,000 pieces? I mean, a 155 howitzer does a really great job at making a mess.
I mean, it really does. So does the spell. What was that spell I'm thinking about? Oh, right, disintegrate.
Batgirl, the movie. Whoa! Rewind that, Grandma. I've never seen or heard of that.
There was a Batgirl.
There was a Batgirl movie but it got shelved. It had Brandon Fraser in it, and DC or Warner Brothers. Like, no.
And who played Batgirl?
I don't know.
Or who was supposed to?
I didn't really look into it. I just knew Brandon Fraser was going to play Firefly in it, and that kind of got me interested.
All I remember about the actress is there was someone I had no familiar.
All right, so I've heard.
So my answer to crafting is yes. You could probably kill a werewolf by overwhelming force. That would be my answer to that, is overwhelming force.
Oh, grandma.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
If you're okay with collateral damage.
Well, you could no. You could kill a werewolf by hitting him a bag of holding that is getting dropped into a portable hold. Now, I don't know if that's
well.
killing,
Actually, believe it or not, Connell, when that first was a thing, whenever you did the bag of holding portable hold thing, there was actually a 50-50 chance of you being shot to another dimension somewhere out in the multiverse.
Yeah, I get that, but if it was with the werewolf, that's somebody else's problem. At that point, that's somebody else's problem. God. But there's the only real good answer. The only answer that I'm not going to accept about curing the werewolf, there is no cure. Rub some dirt on it and make the game more interesting. I don't honestly believe that all werewolves have to be good. I don't believe all werewolves have to be evil. I think it depends on the DM, the player, and the setting of your game.
It should be a tortured existence. It's a curse.
No, it depends. It depends on the scenario at hand.
I mean, Shadow is not necessarily wrong there, though. Like, being a cursed being, it is a curse, and
you could be
part
good,
of,
and
especially,
or you could be evil, right, Jade?
Yeah,
As a-
you could be
I
good, you could
could-
be
yeah.
evil. Yeah, and it's really it's not necessarily the action. It is the actions you take, because the actions you do will be what what you're judged by. But even if you are a noble werewolf who is the cursed being, has the cursed existence, and you're doing everything you can to stop the apocalypse, or in Werewolf the Apocalypse, or if you're doing everything you can to stop a evil terror from destroying all of life in your general area, just one little zone, not the whole world, but just one area, but you rack up a body count because of it, you're still a bad guy, even if you're not a bad guy.
All right, that's fair. One last question, and I promise this is the last question. All right, this question for everybody. Shadow, werewolf, or vampire?
What do you mean? You
Get to choose.
I get to
Tomorrow you're
choose-
going to wake up as one of the other.
Oh, I thought you said which one I would rather hunt.
No. Which one?
Oh.
You're going to wake up tomorrow as one of these creatures. What would it be? A werewolf or a vampire?
Probably I'd probably go with vampire, because all I'd have to do is just wait till the sun came out, walk out, problem solved.
So horrible. Jeez, can't. You know what? Time out.
But if
Can't
you-
take you anywhere. Wait, that's the wrong button.
Which one I'd rather hunt? I'm still going to say vampire.
All right.
Werewolves sound like, yeah.
All right. MarHawkman. Tomorrow you're going to wake up. What would you rather be, werewolf or vampire?
It depends on whether it's the uncontrollable monster version of werewolf,
No,
because
bloody hell.
if it's the if it's the underworld lichens, that was a very manageable curse.
Mario Scarecrow, fuck you.
All right. Jaide, I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyways. And yes, were-tiger is an option. If you had the choice, werewolf, were something, or vampire?
Werewolf. Because as a werewolf, I'm not necessarily, I might be aware of the things I'm doing, but as a vampire, I have to take someone's life, and I'm not okay with that. As a werewolf, it's uncontrollable.
All right. Well, I
could live with uncontrollable.
All right. I will give you all my answer next month on my channel, Cigar DM, when me, Shadow, and the other Canucks, nice people.
Knuckleheads?
What?
Knuckleheads
Get together and pick out scary movies for my channel. But with that being said, thank you everybody who showed up and talked about it. And no, you cannot be a
Did
werewolf.
you ask Mar? I don't remember what Mar said.
He said a werewolf.
Oh, he did? Okay. Sorry.
And no matter what anybody tells you, you cannot be a werebeaver. Jay, do you want to take us out?
Sure. If you've enjoyed tonight's content, please make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channels on the screen and in the description below. And you have yourselves a nice haunted Halloween later this month.